December 1942. The deserts of North Africa. British tank crews are about to encounter something that will shake them to their core. A new German tank unlike anything they have ever faced before. This is the story of the Tiger I tank and its devastating debut in Tunisia. A weapon so powerful it would change armored warfare forever. To understand the impact of the Tiger, we must first understand the North African campaign. By late 1942, the war in North Africa had been raging for over 2 years. British and Commonwealth forces had been fighting German and Italian armies across the desert. The campaign had seen dramatic swings of fortune for both sides. In November 1942, British forces won a decisive victory at El Alamein. Field Marshal Rommel's Afrika Korps was pushed back across Libya. At the same time, American and British forces landed in Morocco and Algeria. This was Operation Torch, opening a new front in North Africa. The Germans and Italians were now caught between two Allied armies. They retreated into Tunisia, preparing for a final stand. Hitler ordered massive reinforcements sent to Tunisia. Thousands of troops, hundreds of tanks, and countless supplies poured in. Among these reinforcements was a secret weapon, the Panzerkampfwagen 6 Tiger, better known simply as the Tiger Wing. The Tiger I was Germany's answer to the problem of Soviet heavy tanks. When Germany invaded the Soviet Union in 1941, they encountered the KV-1 and T-34. These Soviet tanks had thick armor and powerful guns. German tanks of 1941 struggled to destroy them. Hitler demanded a new heavy tank that could dominate the battlefield. The result was the Tiger I, designed by the Henschel Company. The Tiger I was massive compared to existing tanks. It weighed 54 metric tons, nearly twice the weight of most Allied tanks. Its armor was extraordinarily thick, up to 100 millimeters on the front. Most importantly, it mounted the legendary 88mm gun. The 88mm KWK-36 gun was devastatingly powerful. It was based on the famous Flak 88 anti-aircraft gun. This gun could penetrate the armor of any Allied tank at long range. The Tiger I entered production in August 1942. The first Tigers were sent to the Eastern Front in September. They saw action near Leningrad, though with mixed results initially. The tanks had mechanical problems and crews were still learning how to use them. But when the Tiger worked properly, it was absolutely devastating. In late 1942, Hitler decided to send Tigers to North Africa. This was controversial among German commanders. The Tiger was designed for the forests and plains of Europe. The North African desert presented unique challenges. Sand and dust could clog engines and damage mechanical systems. The Tiger's enormous weight made it difficult to transport and maneuver. But Hitler wanted the psychological impact of the Tiger in Africa. He believed it would boost German morale and terrify the Allies. In November 1942, the first Tigers were shipped to Tunisia. They arrived at the port of Bizerte in heavily guarded convoys. The tanks were assigned to the 501st Heavy Tank Battalion. This was an elite unit, specially trained to operate the new heavy tank. The crews were experienced tankers, veterans of the Eastern Front. They knew the Tiger's capabilities and limitations. The Tigers were kept hidden as much as possible. The Germans wanted to surprise the Allies with this new weapon. They planned to use the Tigers in a decisive counterattack. Allied intelligence had some hints that a new German tank existed. Reports from the Eastern Front mentioned an exceptionally heavy tank, but details were scarce and many reports were dismissed as exaggerations. Allied tank crews in North Africa had no idea what was coming. They were confident in their own tanks and their recent victories. The British used primarily Sherman and Crusader tanks. The Sherman was a good medium tank, reliable and produced in huge numbers. It had a 75mm gun and armor up to 76mm thick. The Crusader was lighter and faster but less well armed. These tanks had been effective against German Panzer IIIs and IVs. Allied crews believed they had the advantage in tank warfare. The first encounter with the Tiger came on December 1, 1942. British forces were advancing near the town of Tiburba in northern Tunisia. The terrain was hilly with scattered olive groves and farms. A column of British tanks was moving along a valley road. Suddenly they came under fire from an unknown enemy. The first British tank exploded in a massive fireball. The shot had come from over a mile away, an incredible distance. British tanks scrambled to respond, but they couldn't identify the target. Another Sherman was hit and destroyed before it could even fire. The British crews were confused and terrified. They had never experienced such accurate, devastating fire. Through binoculars, the British finally spotted the enemy. It was a tank, but larger than any German tank they had seen before. Its massive, angular hull seemed impervious to return fire. The British Shermans fired their 75mm guns at the mysterious tank. The shells bounced off harmlessly like pebbles thrown at a fortress. The German tank continued firing with methodical precision. Each shot destroyed or disabled a British tank. Within minutes, an entire British tank platoon had been wiped out. The surviving crews retreated in shock and disbelief. This was the Tiger Y, and it had made a terrifying first impression. News of the encounter spread quickly through Allied units. Tank crews talked in hushed tones about the invulnerable German monster. Reports described a tank that could not be destroyed. British and American commanders initially dismissed these reports. They thought crews were exaggerating or making excuses for defeats. But the encounters continued, and the pattern was always the same. Tigers would engage Allied tanks at extreme range. They would destroy multiple targets before the Allies could effectively respond. Allied shells simply bounced off the Tiger's thick armor. On December 10th, a larger engagement occurred near Majez el Bab. A company of British Crusader and Sherman tanks encountered 4 Tigers. The Tigers were positioned on high ground overlooking the Allied approach. They opened fire at a range of 2,000 yards. The British tanks were caught in the open with no cover. The Tigers systematically destroyed one tank after another. British crews tried to close the distance to get effective shots. But the Tigers picked them off before they could get close enough. In less than 15 minutes, 18 British tanks were destroyed. The Tigers suffered no damage whatsoever. This was not a battle, it was a massacre. Allied commanders could no longer ignore the Tiger threat. Intelligence officers began gathering all available information. They interviewed survivors and examined destroyed tanks. The evidence was clear and alarming. Germany had deployed a tank far superior to anything the Allies possessed. The psychological impact on Allied tank crews was severe. Tankers who had been confident now felt vulnerable and afraid. They knew that encountering a Tiger meant almost certain death. Their tanks' guns could not penetrate the Tiger's armor, but the Tiger's gun could destroy them from far beyond their effective range. This created what tankers called Tiger fear or Tiger panic. Some crews would retreat at the mere rumor of Tigers in the area. Others would misidentify other German tanks as Tigers. This fear became a weapon in itself for the Germans. Allied commanders realized they needed to capture a Tiger for study. Only by examining one closely could they understand its capabilities and weaknesses. But capturing a Tiger intact was extremely difficult. German crews were trained to destroy their tanks if capture was imminent. They would set explosive charges or ignite ammunition to ensure nothing useful remained. The opportunity came in January 1943. A Tiger from the 501st Heavy Tank Battalion became stuck in soft ground. The location was near a place called Point 112, a strategic hill. The Tiger had been supporting a German attack when it bogged down. The crew tried desperately to free the massive tank. They rocked it back and forth trying to get traction. But the 54-ton tank was hopelessly mired. As Allied forces approached, the German crew faced a difficult decision. They were supposed to destroy the Tiger to prevent its capture, but they believed German forces would recapture the position soon. They decided to disable the tank temporarily rather than destroy it completely. They removed some critical components and abandoned the Tiger. British forces found the Tiger the next morning. They were amazed to find it mostly intact. This was the intelligence windfall they had been hoping for. Engineers and intelligence officers immediately descended on the site. They photographed and measured every detail of the Tiger. They examined the armor thickness, the gun, the engine, the tracks. Everything was documented meticulously. The Tiger was then recovered and sent to a testing facility. British engineers conducted exhaustive tests on the captured tank. They measured the thickness of armor at every point. The frontal armor was 100 millimeters thick, angled to increase effectiveness. The side armor was 80 millimeters thick. This was nearly twice as thick as a Sherman's armor. They examined the 88mm gun in detail. The gun had a muzzle velocity of over 800 meters per second. This gave it tremendous penetrating power. At 1,000 yards, it could penetrate 150 millimeters of armor. No Allied tank had that much armor anywhere. The Tiger's rangefinder and sights were exceptionally good. They allowed accurate firing at ranges over 2,000 yards. Allied tanks typically engaged at half that distance or less. The engine was a powerful Maybach V12 producing 642 horsepower. This was necessary to move the Tiger's enormous weight. The transmission was complex with 8 forward gears. This gave the Tiger good mobility despite its weight. But the engineers also discovered weaknesses. The Tiger was mechanically complex and prone to breakdowns. The transmission and engine required frequent maintenance. The overlapping road wheels could become packed with mud or ice. This could immobilize the tank if not cleared. The Tiger consumed fuel at an enormous rate. It got less than 1 mile per gallon of fuel. This limited its operational range severely. Most importantly, the side and rear armor were much thinner than the front. At 80 millimeters on the sides, the Tiger was vulnerable to flank attacks. The rear armor was only 80 millimeters as well. From these angles, Allied tanks could penetrate with their standard guns. The testing revealed a crucial tactical insight. Never engage a Tiger from the front at long range. This was exactly what the Tiger wanted you to do. Instead, Allied tanks should use their superior numbers and mobility. Multiple tanks should attack from different directions simultaneously. Some should draw the Tiger's attention while others flanked it. Once alongside or behind, the Tiger could be destroyed. This information was compiled into intelligence reports. These reports were distributed to all Allied tank units. Training was modified to teach crews how to fight Tigers. Tactical doctrines were updated based on the captured Tiger's analysis. But knowledge alone was not enough. Allied tanks still lacked the firepower to reliably destroy Tigers frontally. This drove the development of new weapons and ammunition. The British developed the 17-pounder anti-tank gun. This powerful gun could penetrate a Tiger's frontal armor at reasonable ranges. It was eventually mounted on Sherman tanks, creating the Sherman Firefly. The Americans developed new armor-piercing ammunition. They also began work on the M26 Pershing, a heavy tank to counter the Tiger. But these developments would take time. In the meantime, Allied crews had to face Tigers with their existing equipment. The psychological warfare aspect of the Tiger cannot be overstated. The Germans deliberately cultivated the Tiger's fearsome reputation. They publicized its successes and suppressed reports of failures. The Tiger became a symbol of German armored superiority. Allied propaganda tried to counter this by emphasizing the Tiger's weaknesses. They pointed out its mechanical unreliability and high fuel consumption. They stressed that Tigers were relatively rare. Germany never produced more than about 350 Tiger One tanks. Compare this to over 50,000 American Sherman tanks. The Allies had a massive numerical advantage. But numbers were small comfort to a crew facing a Tiger in combat. The Tunisia campaign continued through the winter and spring of 1943. Tigers participated in several major battles. At the Battle of Kasserine Pass in February, Tigers spearheaded a German counterattack. They inflicted heavy casualties on inexperienced American forces. The Americans learned painful lessons about fighting German armor. At the Battle of Sidi Bouzid, Tigers again proved devastating. They destroyed dozens of American tanks with minimal losses, but the Tigers could not change the ultimate outcome of the campaign. The Allies had overwhelming superiority in numbers and supplies. They controlled the air, making German movement and resupply difficult. Many Tigers broke down and had to be abandoned due to lack of spare parts. By May 1943, Axis forces in Tunisia were surrounded. They surrendered on May 13th, ending the North African campaign. Many Tigers were captured intact or nearly so. These provided additional intelligence for Allied analysis. The lessons learned in Tunisia would prove invaluable. The Allies would face Tigers again in Sicily, Italy, and eventually France and Germany. Understanding the Tiger's capabilities helped Allied forces develop effective countermeasures. The Tiger's design influenced Allied tank development. The success of its 88mm gun convinced the Allies they needed larger caliber weapons. The effectiveness of its thick armor led to increased armor on Allied tanks. The British Centurion and American M26 Pershing reflected lessons from fighting Tigers. But the Tiger also demonstrated the limits of the heavy tank concept. Its complexity, weight, and cost were significant disadvantages. It required enormous resources to build and maintain. Germany could never produce enough Tigers to make a strategic difference. The Allies' approach of mass-producing simpler, more reliable tanks proved superior. A single Tiger might destroy multiple Shermans, but the Allies could replace those Shermans quickly, while Germany could not replace the Tiger. The psychological impact of the Tiger extended beyond the battlefield. It became a legend in military history. It became a legend in military history. Even today, the Tiger I is one of the most recognizable tanks ever built. Its distinctive boxy shape and massive gun make it instantly identifiable. The Tiger I represents both the strengths and weaknesses of German engineering. It was superbly designed for its primary mission, destroying enemy tanks. In one-on-one combat, it was virtually unbeatable, but it was over-engineered, too complex, and too expensive. Germany's limited industrial capacity could not produce enough of them. The tactical lessons from Tunisia applied throughout the war. Allied tank crews learned to avoid frontal engagements with Tigers. They used terrain, smoke, and maneuver to get flanking shots. They called in artillery and air support when Tigers were spotted. They learned to identify Tigers from a distance to avoid ambushes. These tactics reduced casualties and increased the chances of destroying Tigers. The Tiger's operational history shows interesting patterns. When used correctly, in defensive positions with good fields of fire, it was devastatingly effective. Single Tigers could hold up entire Allied advances. But when forced to attack or operate in difficult terrain, it was vulnerable. Its weight and size made it difficult to maneuver in urban areas. It could not cross many bridges that lighter tanks could. Its mechanical unreliability meant many Tigers were lost to breakdowns rather than combat. Some estimates suggest more Tigers were abandoned due to mechanical failure than destroyed by enemy fire. The fuel consumption issue became more critical as the war progressed. Germany's fuel supplies diminished while demand increased. Tigers often sat immobilized simply because there was no fuel for them. This reduced their effectiveness despite their combat superiority. The crews who operated Tigers were specially selected and trained. They were typically experienced tankers, often with Eastern Front combat experience. They took great pride in operating the most powerful tank in the world. Tiger units developed elite reputations and strong unit cohesion. Famous Tiger aces like Michael Wittmann became household names in Germany. These aces were credited with destroying dozens or even hundreds of enemy tanks. Their exploits were used for propaganda purposes. But they also represented genuine combat effectiveness when Tigers were properly employed. From the Allied perspective, encountering a Tiger remained dangerous throughout the war. Even with better tactics and weapons, destroying a Tiger required skill and courage. Many Allied tankers have written about the fear they felt when facing Tigers. The sound of the 88mm gun was distinctive and terrifying. The sight of shells bouncing off the Tiger's armor was demoralizing. Knowing that a single hit from the Tiger would destroy your tank added to the stress. Yet Allied crews learned to overcome their fear and fight effectively. The numerical advantage meant multiple Allied tanks could engage each Tiger. While some were destroyed, others could maneuver for killing shots. This ruthless arithmetic favored the Allies despite the Tiger's superiority. The development of new Allied weapons gradually reduced the Tiger's advantage. The British 17-pounder gun could penetrate Tigers frontally at reasonable ranges. Sherman Fireflies with this gun became Tiger hunters. American 76mm guns had better penetration than the standard 75. While not as effective as the 17-pounder, they gave Shermans a fighting chance. Tank destroyers like the American M10 and M36 had powerful guns specifically for killing tanks. These vehicles were more effective against Tigers than standard tanks. Artillery and air power also played crucial roles in countering Tigers. Heavy artillery could damage or destroy Tigers with direct hits. Air attacks with rockets or bombs were effective against Tigers in the open. The Allies' air superiority meant Tigers were vulnerable when moving. Many Tigers were destroyed by fighter bombers rather than other tanks. The captured Tigers provided more than just technical intelligence. They were used for training purposes, allowing Allied crews to familiarize themselves with the enemy tank. Some captured Tigers were used in firing tests. Allied weapons were fired at Tiger armor to determine what could penetrate and from what ranges. These tests provided valuable data for tactical planning. They showed that the side and rear armor could be penetrated by standard Allied guns. They confirmed that frontal armor required more powerful weapons. The tests also revealed weak points in the Tiger's design. The lower front plate, though thick, was more vulnerable than the upper plate. The turret ring could be jammed by hits, preventing the turret from rotating. The tracks and road wheels were vulnerable to high explosive shells. Immobilizing a Tiger made it easier to destroy with follow-up shots. The intelligence gathered from captured Tigers was shared with Soviet forces as well. The Soviets faced Tigers in large numbers on the Eastern Front. They developed their own tactics and weapons to counter the Tiger threat. Soviet anti-tank guns and tank destroyers were specifically designed to defeat heavy German armor. The sharing of intelligence between allies was an important aspect of cooperation. The Tiger I served as the basis for further German heavy tank development. The Tiger II, or King Tiger, was an even heavier and more powerful version. It had thicker armor and a more powerful gun than the Tiger I, but it was also more complex, more expensive, and even less mobile. Only about 490 Tiger IIs were built, making it even rarer than the Tiger I. The lessons learned from the Tiger I applied to fighting the Tiger II as well. Avoid frontal engagements, attack from the flanks, and use numerical superiority. The Tiger I's legacy extends beyond World War II. It influenced post-war tank design around the world. The emphasis on thick armor and powerful guns became standard. Main battle tanks of the Cold War incorporated lessons from fighting and studying Tigers. Soviet tanks like the T-54 and T-55 reflected German influence. American tanks like the M48 and M60 also showed Tiger influence in their design philosophy. The balance between firepower, protection, and mobility remained central to tank design. The Tiger I prioritized firepower and protection at the expense of mobility. Modern tanks try to optimize all three characteristics. Advanced technology allows heavier armor without sacrificing mobility. The psychological warfare aspect of the Tiger has been studied extensively. Military historians analyze how reputation and fear factor into combat effectiveness. The Tiger shows that psychological impact can multiply a weapon's physical capabilities. Conversely, it shows how propaganda and reputation can be countered with training and information. By educating crews about the Tiger's weaknesses, the Allies reduced its psychological advantage. Several Tiger I tanks survive today in museums around the world. These preserved examples allow people to appreciate the tank's massive size and impressive design. The Bovington Tank Museum in England has a Tiger I in running condition. This is likely the only operational Tiger I in existence. It is occasionally demonstrated, giving audiences a sense of what Allied tankers faced. The sound of its engine and the sight of it in motion are genuinely impressive and intimidating. Other museums display Tiger Is in various conditions. Some show battle damage, illustrating that Tigers could indeed be destroyed. These preserved tanks serve as physical reminders of the technological arms race of World War II. The story of the Tiger I in Tunisia is more than just military history. It is a story about technological surprise and adaptation. It shows how intelligence gathering and analysis can provide crucial advantages. It demonstrates how training and tactics can overcome technological inferiority. It illustrates the importance of industrial capacity in modern warfare. Germany could build superior individual weapons, but not enough of them. The Allies could mass-produce adequate weapons in overwhelming quantities. This strategic reality ultimately determined the outcome of the war. The human element of the Tiger story deserves emphasis. Behind every tank were men who operated it, maintained it, and fought in it. German Tiger crews were proud of their tanks, but also understood the burden. The mechanical complexity meant constant maintenance work. The fuel requirements meant Tigers often could not operate when fuel was scarce. Allied tankers experienced genuine fear when facing Tigers. Many watched helplessly as their shells bounced off Tiger armor. Many saw their comrades killed when Tigers returned fire. Yet they continued to fight, using courage and tactics to overcome a superior weapon. The Tunisia campaign taught the Allies valuable lessons that saved lives later. By encountering Tigers early, in relatively small numbers, they learned how to fight them. This knowledge was invaluable when facing larger numbers of Tigers in Europe. The captured Tigers allowed engineers to design better weapons and ammunition. Development of the 17-pounder gun and improved armor-piercing rounds was accelerated. The urgency created by the Tiger threat spurred innovation. Some historians argue the Tiger I was Germany's most successful tank design. It achieved an extremely favorable kill-to-loss ratio. Individual Tigers often destroyed dozens of enemy tanks before being knocked out. But others argue this obscures the bigger picture. The resources used to build one Tiger could have built several Panzer IVs. Those Panzer IVs might have been more useful overall despite being individually inferior. The debate reflects different perspectives on military effectiveness. Tactical excellence versus strategic necessity. Quality versus quantity. The Tiger excelled tactically but could not overcome Germany's strategic weaknesses. The technical specifications of the Tiger I remain impressive even by modern standards. 100 millimeters of frontal armor was extraordinary for 1942. The 88 millimeter gun remained effective throughout the war. The optics and range-finding equipment were among the best available. These features made the Tiger a formidable opponent under any circumstances. But the Tiger also shows the limitations of focusing solely on combat performance. Reliability, maintainability, and producibility matter as much as firepower and armor. A broken-down Tiger is useless regardless of how powerful it is. A Tiger that cannot be built does not contribute to victory. These practical considerations are as important as theoretical performance. The evolution of anti-tank weapons accelerated dramatically due to the Tiger. Before the Tiger, most anti-tank guns were 50 to 75 millimeters. After encountering Tigers, armies rushed to deploy larger caliber weapons. 85 millimeter, 90 millimeter, and larger guns became standard. Tank destroyer doctrine evolved to emphasize mobility and firepower. The American tank destroyer force was reorganized and re-equipped. The M36 Jackson tank destroyer with its 90 millimeter gun was a direct response to the Tiger threat. Infantry anti-tank weapons also evolved. Shaped charge weapons like the Panzerfaust and bazooka could defeat Tiger armor at close range. These portable weapons gave infantry a fighting chance against heavy tanks. The psychological impact extended to infantry as well as tank crews. Infantry feared being overrun by Tigers they could not effectively engage. The development of better infantry anti-tank weapons helped restore confidence. The role of air power in countering Tigers became increasingly important. As the Allies achieved air superiority, Tigers became vulnerable to aerial attack. Fighter bombers with rockets and bombs could destroy Tigers from above. The top armor of the Tiger was much thinner than the front, side, and rear. This made it vulnerable to attacks from above. German Tigers increasingly had to move at night or in bad weather to avoid air attack. This limited their operational flexibility significantly. The strategic bombing campaign against German industry also affected Tiger production. Bombing raids disrupted manufacturing and delayed deliveries. Critical components and raw materials became scarce. This further limited the number of Tigers that could be produced. The comprehensive Allied strategy of industrial warfare ultimately defeated the Tiger. Superior tactics, better weapons, overwhelming numbers, and strategic bombing combined to neutralize the Tiger advantage. The Tiger Vi story is often romanticized in popular culture. Films, books, and video games frequently feature the Tiger as the ultimate tank. This reflects its genuine combat effectiveness and iconic status. But it can also distort historical understanding. The Tiger was indeed formidable but not invincible. It had significant weaknesses that skilled opponents could exploit. It could not overcome Germany's strategic disadvantages. Understanding both its strengths and limitations provides a more complete picture. The veterans who fought Tigers on both sides have provided valuable first-hand accounts. German Tiger crews speak of the confidence the tank gave them. They knew they had the best tank on the battlefield. But they also remember the constant mechanical problems and the fuel shortages. Allied tankers remember the fear and frustration of facing Tigers. But they also remember learning how to fight them effectively. They remember the satisfaction of successfully destroying a Tiger through teamwork and tactics. These personal accounts add human dimension to the technical details. The Tiger I in Tunisia represents a pivotal moment in World War II armor warfare. It marked the debut of a weapon that would influence the rest of the war. The shock experienced by Allied forces drove important changes. Better intelligence gathering and analysis became priorities. Weapons development accelerated to counter the new threat. Tactical doctrine evolved based on hard-learned lessons. Training programs incorporated specific anti-Tiger techniques. The Tunisia campaign served as a testing ground for both sides. Germans learned how to employ Tigers effectively in combat. Allies learned how to counter them despite technological inferiority. Both sides gained experience that shaped future operations. The industrial and logistical challenges of maintaining Tigers became apparent in Tunisia. The long supply lines from Europe made getting spare parts difficult. The harsh desert environment accelerated wear on mechanical components. Many Tigers were lost not to enemy action, but to maintenance failures. This foreshadowed the logistical problems that would plague Tigers throughout the war. Germany's logistical system was never adequate for the Tiger's demands. The captured Tiger that was shipped back to Britain became a valuable training tool. It was studied extensively by engineers and military analysts. Every aspect of its design was documented and analyzed. This information was compiled into detailed technical reports. These reports were distributed throughout the Allied forces. They provided tank crews with vital knowledge about their enemy, The captured tiger was eventually displayed at various locations for propaganda purposes. It helped demonstrate that tigers could be defeated and captured. This countered the psychological impact of the tiger's reputation. Showing Allied forces that tigers were not invincible boosted morale. The technical analysis revealed interesting aspects of German tank design philosophy. German engineers prioritized firepower and protection above all else. They were willing to accept complexity and high production costs. The Tiger's transmission alone was a masterpiece of engineering, but it was also expensive to produce and difficult to maintain. Allied designers took a different approach. They emphasized simplicity, reliability, and ease of production. The Sherman tank was specifically designed for mass production. It used automotive components and could be built quickly. While individually inferior to the Tiger, Shermans could be produced in vast numbers. This design philosophy ultimately proved superior for total war. The Tiger remains one of the most studied tanks in military history. Countless books, articles, and documentaries have examined every aspect of its design and service. Modern computer analysis has provided new insights into its performance. Simulations show exactly what penetration values different weapons achieved against Tiger armor. This validates and refines the wartime testing and combat reports. The Tiger's impact on military doctrine was profound and lasting. It demonstrated the value of heavy tanks in defensive operations. Properly positioned Tigers could dominate a battlefield and halt enemy advances. This led to post-war emphasis on heavy tanks in many armies, but it also showed the limitations of heavy tanks in mobile warfare. Tigers were less effective when forced to attack or maneuver extensively. This informed the development of main battle tank concepts. The goal became combining heavy firepower with better mobility. Modern tanks attempt to achieve the Tiger's firepower without its mobility penalties. Advanced engines, transmissions, and suspension systems make this possible. The 88mm gun became legendary in its own right. It originated as an anti-aircraft gun in the 1930s. German forces discovered its effectiveness against tanks during the Spanish Civil War. In North Africa, towed 88mm guns devastated British armor. Mounting this gun on the Tiger made it mobile and protected. The combination was devastatingly effective. Allied forces developed healthy respect for any 88mm gun. Whether mounted on a Tiger or towed behind a truck, it was deadly. The sound of an 88 firing became one of the most feared sounds of the war. The flat trajectory and high velocity made it extremely accurate. Crews could hit targets at ranges where other tanks could barely see them. The Tiger's optical equipment complemented the gun perfectly. German optical quality was among the best in the world. The commander's periscope and gunner's sight provided excellent visibility. The rangefinder allowed precise distance measurement. This combination meant first-round hits at long range were common. Allied tanks often had inferior optics and no rangefinders. This put them at a significant disadvantage in long-range engagements. The crew layout in the Tiger was conventional but effective. The commander, gunner, and loader were in the turret. The driver and radio operator were in the hull. This five-man crew was standard for heavy tanks. The turret was spacious by tank standards, allowing efficient crew operation. The commander had excellent visibility and could direct the crew effectively. Communication between crew members was facilitated by intercom systems. This was more advanced than systems in many Allied tanks. The radio equipment allowed communication between tanks and with higher command. This coordination capability enhanced the Tiger's effectiveness. Tigers often operated in pairs or small groups for mutual support. One Tiger could cover another while it moved or engaged targets. This tactical coordination multiplied their effectiveness. The training of Tiger crews was extensive and thorough. They learned not just how to operate the tank, but how to maximize its advantages. Positioning, range estimation, and target priority were emphasized. Crews learned to use terrain to protect their vulnerable sides and rear. They practiced engaging multiple targets in rapid succession. The result was highly skilled crews operating a superior weapon system. This combination was extremely difficult for Allied forces to overcome. The maintenance burden of the Tiger was substantial. Daily maintenance required several hours of work. The complex mechanical systems needed constant attention. Track tension had to be monitored and adjusted regularly. The overlapping road wheels required cleaning to prevent jamming. Engine oil and filters needed frequent changing. The transmission was particularly troublesome and required careful operation. Rough handling could damage the gearbox, leaving the Tiger immobilized. Repair of major components often required specialized equipment and trained technicians. This was not always available, especially in combat situations. Many Tigers were abandoned due to relatively minor mechanical failures. Without proper repair facilities, even small problems could be fatal. The logistics of supporting Tigers in the field was challenging. Each Tiger required a dedicated supply chain for fuel, ammunition, and parts. Transporting Tigers by rail required special heavy-duty rail cars. Moving them by road risked mechanical breakdown. The weight limited which bridges could be crossed. Rivers often had to be forded, which was risky and time-consuming. These practical difficulties limited where and how Tigers could be deployed. The ammunition for the 88mm gun was large and heavy. The Tiger carried 92 rounds internally. This sounds like a lot, but in sustained combat it could be expended quickly. Resupply was essential, but getting ammunition to Tigers at the front was difficult. The weight and size of the rounds meant fewer could be transported. Tigers sometimes had to conserve ammunition, limiting their effectiveness. The variety of ammunition types available gave Tigers tactical flexibility. Armor-piercing rounds were used against tanks. High-explosive rounds were used against infantry and soft targets. Crews could switch ammunition types based on the tactical situation. This versatility made the Tiger effective against various threats. The impact of the Tiger on Allied strategy was significant. Planners had to account for the possibility of encountering Tigers. Attack plans included specific provisions for dealing with heavy German armor. Artillery and air support were pre-planned to counter expected Tigers. Tank formations were adjusted to provide mutual support against Tigers. Reconnaissance became even more important to detect Tigers early. Early warning allowed Allied forces to prepare appropriate responses. The presence of Tigers could delay or disrupt Allied operations. Even a single Tiger could hold up an entire advance. This forced the Allies to expend time and resources to eliminate the threat. In this sense, each Tiger had strategic impact beyond its tactical effectiveness. The propaganda value of the Tiger for Germany was considerable. News of Tiger victories boosted German civilian morale. It suggested that German technology and fighting spirit remained superior. Tiger aces became heroes, their exploits widely publicized. This helped maintain confidence despite the overall strategic situation deteriorating. For the Allies, countering this propaganda required showing Tigers could be defeated. Photographs and film of destroyed or captured Tigers were widely distributed. Success stories of Allied tankers defeating Tigers were publicized. This helped maintain Allied morale and confidence. The evolution of Allied tactics against Tigers was continuous. As crews gained experience, tactics became more refined. The use of smoke screens to conceal movement became standard. This allowed tanks to close range or maneuver without being picked off at distance. Combined arms tactics integrated infantry, artillery, and armor. Infantry could spot Tigers and call in artillery or airstrikes. Artillery could suppress Tigers, preventing them from firing effectively. This allowed tanks to close and engage from favorable positions. The importance of intelligence and reconnaissance was emphasized. Knowing where Tigers were positioned allowed for better planning. Avoiding Tiger positions when possible was often the best tactic. If Tigers could not be bypassed, concentrated force was applied. The Tigers story in Tunisia was just the beginning. Tigers would fight in every major campaign for the rest of the war. In Italy, Sicily, Normandy, and the Eastern Front, Tigers remained formidable. But Allied forces were better prepared each time. The lessons learned in Tunisia paid dividends throughout the war. Allied casualties from Tiger encounters decreased as tactics improved. Success rates against Tigers increased as weapons and training improved. The Tiger remained dangerous but became manageable. By 1945, Tiger production had ceased due to resource shortages. Remaining Tigers fought desperately in the defense of Germany. Many were destroyed, abandoned, or captured as Germany collapsed. The Tigerine's combat service ended with Germany's surrender in May 1945, but its impact on tank warfare and military history would endure. The Tiger I in Tunisia represents a case study in military innovation and adaptation. Germany introduced a revolutionary weapon that shocked its opponents. The Allies initially struggled to counter it effectively, but through intelligence gathering, tactical innovation, and industrial mobilization, they adapted. Better weapons, improved tactics, and overwhelming numbers eventually neutralized the Tiger threat. This pattern of challenge and response is fundamental to military history. Technological advantages are temporary unless sustained by continued innovation. Germany's failure to maintain its technological edge contributed to its defeat. The Allies' ability to adapt and innovate was crucial to their victory. The Tiger also illustrates the relationship between tactics and technology. The best technology is useless without proper tactics. Conversely, good tactics can overcome technological disadvantage. Allied forces demonstrated this by developing effective tactics against Tigers. The combination of improved tactics and better weapons eventually gave the Allies the advantage. The human factor remained crucial throughout the Tiger story. Brave men on both sides fought and died in and around these tanks. German Tiger crews took pride in their elite status and powerful weapon. Allied tankers overcame fear to engage a superior opponent. The courage and skill of individual soldiers ultimately determined outcomes. No weapon, however powerful, can win wars alone. Victory requires the courage of soldiers, the wisdom of commanders, and the strength of nations. The Tiger Eye remains a symbol of both German engineering excellence and strategic failure. It shows what can be achieved through superior design and engineering. But it also shows the limitations of relying on technological superiority alone. Without adequate numbers, logistics, and strategic resources, even the best weapons cannot ensure victory. As we conclude this story of the Tiger in Tunisia, we remember the shock of its arrival. British tankers encountering an unstoppable enemy for the first time, their shells bouncing harmlessly off massive armor. The devastating accuracy of the 88mm gun. The fear and confusion as conventional tactics failed. But we also remember the adaptation that followed. The intelligence officers who studied captured Tigers. The engineers who developed better weapons and ammunition. The tactical innovators who found ways to defeat the Tiger. The brave tank crews who learned to fight and win against a superior opponent. The Tiger Eye in Tunisia changed armored warfare forever. It forced all armies to reconsider tank design and anti-tank capabilities. It influenced the development of tanks for decades after the war. Its massive armor and powerful guns set new standards. But Tunisia also showed that technological superiority alone is not enough. Numbers, logistics, tactics, and determination all matter. The Allies learned this lesson and applied it throughout the war. The Tiger remains one of the most famous tanks in history. Its reputation for invincibility persists in popular imagination. But the reality was more complex and nuanced. The Tiger was formidable but not invincible. It could be defeated through skill, tactics, and courage. This is the true lesson of the Tiger in Tunisia. That even the most powerful weapons can be overcome. That adaptation and innovation can counter technological surprise. That human factors remain decisive in warfare. The story of the Tiger Eye in Tunisia is a story of shock and adaptation, of fear overcome through knowledge and training, of technological challenge met with tactical innovation. It reminds us that war is dynamic, requiring constant adaptation. It shows how intelligence and analysis can provide crucial advantages. It demonstrates the importance of industrial capacity in modern warfare, and it honors the courage of all those who fought in and against this legendary tank. This is the story of the Tiger Eye in Tunisia, a weapon that changed warfare and the men who learned to defeat it. May we never forget the lessons learned at such great cost, and may we remember the courage of those who faced the Tiger and survived. This concludes our account of the Tiger Eye tank and its impact in Tunisia.